So it's been a while since we've done a scrap fabric challenge. Obviously, this weighs a ton. I've been wanting to do this for actually quite a while, but I keep putting it off because I've had other projects and other things in the way, and I'm finally kind of getting caught up, and I thought it'd be really fun to do another one. So, I kind of need this on camera so you guys can see what I'm doing. Here, give me a second. Okay, at least you guys can see the top of it. You know how big it is. Okay, so that is a lot better. I've got to crouch, but you guys can see what's going on. So let me blindfold myself. Really hope this stays in focus while I'm doing this. I can't see you guys. Can you see me? Obviously you can see me. Okay, so we're gonna pick about 3 or 4 pieces of fabric, depending on how large they are. That way I have enough to actually make an art doll. I'm not gonna look at any of them until after we grab all 4 of them. As you can see, I can't. I'm going to kind of dig in there because I have no idea what's in the middle. See what I can find. Okay, I got this. It's not very big. So we'll definitely need a lot of fabric. I think I want to grab a fur piece too. I don't want all flat fabrics. Ooh, I found a fake leather fabric. Very long. This will just be for probably decoration. This piece seems kind of big. Okay. I'm debating on if I should go for another fur or flat fabric. That's the only thing I can tell while I'm in here. I think this piece. Okay. It's another fur fabric. Okay, so I made my draws. I have no idea what I have right now, so let's see. That could be interesting. Okay, so these are the colors we picked. Very interesting. Honestly, they're not that bad together. The odd one out is kind of the green, but I think I can still work with it. Yeah, this could be... These are definitely colors I would not have picked to work together. Okay, let's get designing. Okay, so now that we have our fabric picked out, we need to figure out what we're actually going to be making. Now, obviously, it's not going to be, like, really big. There isn't a lot here to really work with. So I am kind of limited on what I want to do. So I messed around with a few sketches here and there, and I finally landed on wanting to do a little baby owl. So I think we have enough fabric to actually get an owl done. So I sketched out a pattern that would work for the amount of fabric that I had. I was cutting it really close with some of the colors, but I think everything will work. So basically this is the pattern that I'm going to end up using. I've got the side pieces, the wing portions, the tail, just everything, even the little piece of fabric for the belly. Now normally at this point I would be working on the clay pieces, but since we're already started with the fabric and all the pattern pieces and stuff, let's get sewing the body together. So I'm going to get started on the feathers. So I'm going to be using that short plush green fabric and that leather to make the layered feather effect for the wing and the tail. So for the green pieces, I am going to have to sew them together. So I'm going to end up pinning these together, sewing around the sides and flipping them right side out. We don't need to stuff them because they're feathers, they don't need to be stuffed. And then for the leather pieces, I just cut them out using the pattern, and I'm going to sew them on top of the green pieces. For the tail, I'm going to use a little bit of fur fabric on the top and bottom. So I have a piece that's going to go on the top portion, and I'm going to use that khaki color, and then the under portion I'm going to use the white fabric that we ended up getting. I'm also going to trim the fur just a little bit because it's just a little too fluffy and you can't really see the other fabrics. So I'm going to trim that up, and then we're going to move on to the wings. Now with the wings, I have the portions broken up into 2 different colors using the khaki fur and our baby blue fur. Kind of did this on purpose, also had no choice because I just didn't have enough fur fabric to pick one or the other. Had to do both. So I'm going to sew these together, and then each wing has a top portion and a bottom portion, and we're going to sew those together as well. But while we're sewing those together, we're going to take our feather pieces and we're going to sew those in place too. Now with the sides of the body, I also have both of these broken up into two colors. I've used the khaki for the top and the baby blue for the bottom. So we're going to start sewing these together, but we're going to stop at a certain point, roughly about where you'd say the owl's neck would stop. And we're going to end up sewing our wings in place there. Once we have the wings sewn into place, we can continue going all the way down, connecting the two pieces of fabric. Then we can take the piece of fabric that I'm going to use for the belly, which is going to be white, and we can start sewing both of the body pieces to it. Now, I am only going to sew to a certain point, and that's going to be where I'm going to connect the legs. Now, we don't have any legs right now, so we kind of need to start working on our clay pieces. So I'm going to start on the clay head first, and then we'll move on to the legs, just because I like making the face first and then the feet. Just a preference I have. So I'm going to get my clay laid out on my tin foil, blend everything together, and just kind of figure out how the face is going to be shaped. I'm going to add a little bit more clay to the very front, and this is going to be for the beak. So I'm going to blend that together and start adjusting the shape of it to get our cute little beak. I kind of want it short and chubby. I know I started out with a lot of clay, but I'm not going to use all of it. Most of that's going to get blended into the rest of the face. And then I need to place our eyes. So I have some resin pieces. I'm just going to place these on the face where I want the eyes to go, and we can start building up the clay around them. So I'm just going to build up the cheekbones a little bit, and then we can lay out our eyelids and start shaping them around the eyes to make our expression. Obviously, for an owl, I want the eyes to be as wide as possible, but I do want them to not just be perfectly round. I'm going to add a little bit of characteristic to them. After that, I'm going to move on to separating the beak into two different sections. That way we can make the mouth. I'm going to adjust that a little bit and kind of mess around with the corners of it to make it look a little bit more rounded. And then we're going to start adding some decoration between the eyes. I figured it'd be really fun to just add a little bit more clay right here and play around with it. So I'm going to put our clay head in the oven for about 45 minutes at 275 Fahrenheit, and then while that's baking, we can start working on our feet. For the clay feet, I have some very simple wire frames. The wires don't even go into the toes, it's just something that I can hold on to and add the clay to. So I'm going to add a little bit of clay around this. I'm going to add more around the very end to bulk it up. And then for the toes, I've done this with another project and I liked how it came out, so I'm going to try it with this. I'm going to use my resin toes that have the nice little claws, and I'm just going to push them into the clay. I'm going to blend everything together, that way the resin is blended into the clay, and then I'm going to add a few extra details like some wrinkles here and there between the toes, and then I want to add a few bits of scaling on the top portion of the foot. Then we just need to bake these like the head. They'll probably go in about the same amount of time. We'll use the same temperature, 275 Fahrenheit, and like I said before, about 45 minutes. Moving on to the painting, I'm going to start with the head first and get that done, and then we can paint the feet, just kind of like we did with the clay itself. So I'm going to primer the head a baby blue. It came out a little bit darker, but that's okay. I want the face to stand out a little bit more. So I'm going to paint that blue. Once that's dried, I'm going to start working on the colors of the beak. I'm going to add some yellows and stuff, and then I can add a little bit of line work here and there on the beak to just add a little bit more detail. So most of the face I don't really need to paint because we are going to be furring it with the leftover fur fabric. I don't have a lot, but I have enough to cover the face. So I'm just going to be doing the decoration between the eyes. I'm going to add a couple different colors. That way they match the feathers that we have. I want to use that green and that blue. And then for painting the feet, I'm going to be using that same yellow that we painted the beak with. I'm going to primer everything. I'm going to add a little bit of color here and there, brighten up the tips of the toes. And I also want to add a little bit of pink to the bottom portion of the foot. And then for the scales on the tops of the feet, I'm going to be painting these that dark blue that we used on the face. Lastly, I'm just going to paint the claws black. And now that we have our clay pieces done, we can finally put the owl together. So we're going to start with the feet. I'm going to take a strip of fur fabric. I'm going to use the white this time, and I'm going to glue it around the base of our foot. Now this is a little bit longer because what we're going to do is we're going to take that fabric and we're going to sew the foot in place while we're closing up the rest of the bottom portion, connecting the belly to the body. So we're basically starting back up where we left off on the sewing. And then once we have our clay feet in place, we're just going to continue sewing. That way we can connect the belly piece all the way to the two side pieces of the body. When we get to the end, we're going to take our tail and we're going to sew it at the very end. And then we can take our clay head and add it to the body. So I'm going to take the fabric for the neck, or at least what would be considered the neck, because an owl doesn't really have too much of a neck, and I'm going to be gluing this fabric around the base of the head. So I'm going to start at the under portion where the white fabric is, and then I'm going to go all the way around, meeting the two edges together at the top. You'll want to let this dry a little bit, of course, and then we can start stuffing and closing up the owl. Now all we need to do is fur the face. So I'm going to take my fur trimmings that I have and I'm going to start gluing it around the face where I want the fur to be. So I'm going to take some fabric glue, paint that onto the face, and then sprinkle my fur trimmings over the glue and just kind of move them around with a pair of tweezers until I have everything where I want it. Now this glue does take a little bit longer to dry, so I'm going to leave it alone, but it's pretty much done at this point. Okay guys, and here is our cute little baby owl, our little owlet that I made out of our scrap fabric. He's so cute. I haven't been able to make something just simple and cute in a while. I've been making some pretty detailed things, and this was just nice and relaxing and fun to do. Anyways, this little guy is going to be on my website, so if anyone is interested in buying him and giving him a new home, you can check the links down below for that. Also, I have a couple different patterns on my website. I've been slowly trying to add more, and this is the most recent one that I added, this little plush octopus. I have the pattern for this. The pattern comes with instructions that have photos, and I made some adjustments, so if you bought in this one before on my Etsy, when I used to sell on Etsy, The pieces used to be where you print everything out, you'd have to tape them together. I shrunk them down just a tiny bit so everything fits on pages on its own, so you don't have to tape anything together. And then of course I have a bunch of different links to a bunch of different art supplies that I like to use to make my art dolls. So if you're interested in seeing what I use or you want to make your own, you can check those out. Now these are affiliated links, so if you do buy anything through them, it does help support the channel. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!